Hello, fundamentals class. I just wanted to make a quick video for you guys. I think I'm fairly well caught up, if you can believe that. I've graded all of the accessible role play 2s, and I'm working my way through role play 3. So a couple of things about that I wanted to mention. I have 2 students who are really struggling to get their videos to me in a way that I can see them. It keeps saying that permission is denied. So I'm just sort of reaching out to those of you who have done this successfully through either, I think I've viewed them through MP3s and Zoom, maybe. But anyway, if you have any suggestions, when I try to look at these 2 students' role plays, it tells me permission is not granted, permission denied. I don't have permission to view it. So if anybody has any great, like, oh my gosh, I know this is what's going on, would you put that on the course wall for these 2 students? I don't really know what else to tell them. They've tried sending it through 2 different accounts. I don't have trouble with this usually, so I don't know what's happening. Or if you have any other suggestions on format that they could, through which they could send it, I don't know. So anyway, help with that if anybody has it. I also just wanted to give you a 1 minute, just sort of a personal check-in. I realize that this has been, I've been behind on grading, and I just want to say I'm really sorry. I have a bunch of excuses, but also I am really sorry that some of you have had to do your 3rd role plays without feedback on your 2nd role play or vice versa, and that's not my intention. My excuses are I spent a brief time in the hospital. I've had 2 MRIs, 3 surgical procedures, many surgical procedures, small ones. But still, you know, going and fasting and going with IVs and things like that. I have a hip problem, which I know that makes me sound really old, and I don't like saying that, but I think we're working on it. I've gone to the physical therapist countless times this semester, so I am afraid that it has my physical personal problems have bled over into my academic work with you all, and I really apologize. I've been slow on giving you feedback, but I feel like I don't want to just breeze through the feedback and not give you something that's meaningful. So I haven't been slacking as far as the feedback I'm providing for you. It's just not been as timely as I would normally prefer it to be. So anyway, just wanted to acknowledge that this is not my normal teaching style. This is, but being late and a little bit unavailable is definitely not my teaching style, and I really apologize for that. I'm feeling better, so hopefully from here on out, as we wrap up the semester, I will be a little more with it. Okay, so a couple of things that I wanted to discuss about the SOAP Note fiasco. I was shocked to begin to read your SOAP Note assignments because and I was like, what's happening? Everyone is doing this. And I looked it up again, and the example that you were provided was incorrect. And so I don't know how this woman published this, and then I don't know how it appeared on our module. But as I said in my announcement, subjective is, the way I remember it, very simply. Now there's more to it than this, but the subjective is what the client says. Okay, what happened in the session, what you talked about, what you processed. The objective is what you observe. So that's where you put in, and some of you guys have written some really nice sections for this. I find this a little hard to write, or at least originally. It seems like it gets repeated every week because most of the times your clients don't have any major objective differences. Although when they do, it's remarkable because you've been commenting on it. So that's where you put things like the client appeared less nervous today. And I really encourage you to add, and I added this to some of yours, but to add the phrase, The client appeared, whatever, as evidenced by, and that's where you would put, as evidenced by increased sustained eye contact, less fretting with hands, or whatever it is that how do you know they're more comfortable? I read some SOAP notes that said the client appeared happier today. Well, what does that mean? How do you know? What made you know that they seemed happier? What made you know they seemed stressed? So that's what you want in the objective section. And again, I'm saying it in a simplistic way just to try to help you remember, because it took me a while to remember that too. And then you guys were presented with the wrong information, and so it's doubly confusing. I'm sorry about that. We are fixing that in the big module there. So some of you have asked about SOAP note headings, and I've made lots of comments about this to some of you. There are other instructors who will tell you just the opposite. So I'm not going to count off if you do it my way or not. And you don't get extra credit if you do it my way or not. But I personally prefer to have headings. I don't like the narrative where it's just all written out like one big paragraph. For me, for my brain, I like to have a heading. Subjective, this is what I'm going to talk about. Objective, this is what I'm going to talk about. Assessment, this is what I'm going to talk about. Plan. I don't even like to just put the S or the O. I like to write out subjective. I like to write out objective. For me, it helps. And for me as a clinician, it helps. And then also for me as an instructor who's grading, it just helps. I just think it makes it cleaner. So that's my preference. I have heard that there's another instructor at Antioch who says the exact opposite. She likes the narrative. She likes it all bunched together. So try it. See what you think. Okay. That's what I wanted to say about that. Then a little bit of feedback from, now that I've completed all of your module, or all of your role play number 2. A few things that I just want to say in general. A couple of you I have said, please hold off on advanced skills. Wait till you master these more basic skills. Okay, the paraphrasing, summarizing, reflecting, feeling reflections, some meaning reflections, but really until you've mastered feeling reflections, there is nothing else. That's what we do, is we reflect feeling. We recognize feeling, we notice feeling, we connect to our clients through those feelings. And if you can't feel that and then name it, it's not time to move on to an advanced skill, if that makes sense. So, so do look at the feedback that I've given you for that in regard to what I hope you'll do for the next session. Really try to stay in the moment with your client. I noticed several of you saying things like, in our last session, you seem to have a reaction to this. There might be times to bring up a last session, sure. But primarily, you want to keep the person in this session. I've heard some of you talk about, well, what do you think will be most stressful, that or that? Talking about the future. Maybe there are times for that, but primarily you want to talk about right now. So it's an art to stay in the moment for us as individuals, and then it's even a deeper art to stay in the moment with our clients. But that's where the real work happens, is in this session, in this room with these two people. It's easy, I even noticed this in the internship classes that I'm teaching, it's easy to talk about a third person. And sometimes we do need information about a third person. If it's a divorce or abuse or a heartbreak about another person, we need to know some things about that. But instead of asking questions about that person, keep it focused on your client and how that other person's behavior affects your client. So that's where you want to ask, what is this like for you when he does this? Or what have you noticed about yourself when that happens. And then I always would want you to take that a step further and say, what's going on for you right now as we're talking about that? So that helps keep it in the moment, right? When your client's telling you things, some really emotional story, be very careful that you don't listen to them and then come up with a question. Stop yourself and give them a reflection minimum. Give them a feeling reflection. You can do more. You can, but start with a feeling reflection. Wow, I hear so much, whatever it is, right? Whatever that feeling is. Give them that before you move on, and certainly before you change topic. I did see a couple of times in the videos, students, their clients were saying something getting really emotional, and then they listened to it and then would move on to something else before doing a feeling reflection or doing some type of connecting and your job is to let your client know that you understand them and that you feel what they're feeling, you get it. So really focus on that in your daily life. If you're watching TV, if you're talking to somebody, really focus on what your experience is of this other person. I probably told you this, it's been a while since I made a video, but I probably told you to keep it simple with the 5 basic emotions. There, of course, are lots of others, but slash. So when you're really working on those basic skills of identifying an emotion with yourself or with others, think sadness, loneliness, anger, happiness, and what? I got confused. Okay, slash. Sadness, loneliness, anger, scared, and happy. No, hold on. I got to write it down. Slash. Sad, lonely, angry. Yeah, okay, scared and happy. So don't make it too complicated. Don't get caught up in, oh, well, I don't think they're actually scared. I think they're just more hesitant, or they're more this. They're scared. Hesitant is a milder way to say somebody's scared. So really just try to identify some basic emotions. Don't get caught up in making it a fancy emotion connection, if that makes sense. Okay, also really work on not being an investigator. Again, and I've talked about this before, I know, is that the details are much less important than the experience, than the feelings. So when you're tempted to ask a detailed question, or I've heard lots of closed-ended yes or no questions. You throw a yes or no question at an adolescent, what are you going to get? Yes or no. That's it. So keep practicing on opening up those questions, making them broader so that the yes or no questions are going to start with what, how, never why, right? We've talked about that. But what is this like? How was that for you? How is it right now to talk about it? How are you different? How are you processing this? How those how questions are processing questions, right? So be careful not to be an investigator. You don't need to know all the details. And I think I saw a lot of you doing some feeling reflections and then following it up with a question. So I saw a lot of you do this really well too. Try to say, if somebody says something and you're picking up one of those basic emotions, sadness, let's say, okay? Somebody tells you this long thing and you just say, wow, I hear so much sadness in that. Or however you say it. Stop right there. I hear so much sadness. Just stop. Don't say another word. Practice that. Put a period on it, right? I've seen you guys say, I hear sadness. So I wonder if it's this, or if is it this, or is it this? Or I wonder if this is getting to you more, or this is getting to you more. Pick one. Choose this. No. Let your client tell you, okay? You don't have to present them with options. Is it this or is it this? Do you think it's more this or this? You can point out to them, perhaps, I hear you talking about the struggle with your dad, and I also hear you talking about the struggle with your son. I wonder what that's like for you. Or I hear two sides of you. I hear one side you're really excited, and I hear this other side where you're scared to death. And then you stop, you put a period on that, right? You don't ask a question, you just notice it. So really, really work to not ask questions. And if you must, make sure that it's open. Google it. Look up closed-ended questions, open-ended questions. This is not just a counseling thing. So there's a lot of information out there, and practice that. Practice it with your kids, practice it with your spouse, with your coworkers. Okay. Oh, and one more thing I was going to say about paraphrasing and reflecting feeling. When you don't know what to do, and I see a lot of you thinking, what's next? How do I say this? What do I ask next? What's a good question to ask? Just breathe and do a feeling reflection. Or just breathe. Do a meaning reflection. Do a paraphrase. Those are when you don't know what else to do, go back to those very basic skills. It's not fancy. It doesn't have to be fancy. I see a lot of you working really hard to figure your client out, to say things like, oh, well, it's interesting that you do this in this way. And it's like your brain is trying to fix them. Because if you can figure it out, then you can tell them, oh, well, then your brain does this, and or every time your dad says this, you react like this, so stop it. Nobody said that, don't worry. But that's what I'm hearing as I'm listening. It's like if like some of you are thinking that if you can point out to the client what they're doing wrong, then they'll stop doing it. That's not counseling. So remove yourself, give yourself a break. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have sequential steps or logical explanations for why a client is feeling a certain way. Some of you don't believe me, right? All you really have to do is see their emotions, connect with their emotions, and then let them know that you're connecting through their emotions. Am I getting too philosophical? But that's where you really want to live, is right there between the two of you in those emotions, not in trying to figure out how to solve their problems. That's not what we do. And I've said that before, I'll say it again, and you'll hear it again and again. That's not what we do. We don't try to figure our clients out to solve their problems. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about challenging skills. This one can be really tricky. I had a professor in my master's program, Dr. Bass, who would encourage us to challenge clients. And his style was so unrelatable to me. He was a great counselor, great guy. But he would tell us, when you hear your client talking about something that doesn't make sense because they just said this and then they said this, he said, I sit there and I say, bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm calling bullshit on that. And I never in a million gazillion years would ever say that to a client. So I couldn't relate to that. That's not my style. I wouldn't say that to anybody. It worked for him and certain clients. So I have found my own style, which is very kind, but also straightforward. But I have to do it in a way that first shows compassion and empathy. And then I can challenge in very soft ways. That's just my style. So find your style. Don't let that challenging or confrontation, I heard the term, and I sort of love it and hate it, but carefrontation. It's so cheesy, but But I always come from a place of caring. If I didn't care, I wouldn't confront. And so that's where I come from with that. So be careful, because it's not your job to call your clients on things. It's because you don't want to come across as an investigator. Oh, you've said this 3 times, so I think that you are guilty, or I don't know what you would say, but that's not where we're coming from. If I hear a client repeating something that doesn't make sense, they're also saying the opposite. I might say, I hear you saying that you want this in your life. And then I also hear you saying that this week, several times, you've done this other thing. I wonder what's going on there. That's how I would confront. That's my style. Maybe you're more of a bullshit kind of person. I don't know, but I can't say that I recommend that. So something between that, or maybe more like mine, maybe something that's more confrontive, but I think you have to show caring first, or then it just feels confrontive and mean. Right? So I think that caring piece has to be in there before you confront. So for some of you that I've said in your feedback, work on the basic skills, work on just identifying feelings. Don't do confronting yet, okay? Or these other advanced skills. Just stick with, if all you do in this class is learn the basic skills, that's fine. That's enough. This is a fundamentals course. So the agents of change and things like that, I feel like those are really more advanced for what I really want you to get out of this course. I want you to just really master those basics. So, okay, I think that's what I wanted to say, and I will be grading role play 3 here as you turn them in, and SOAP notes too. I'm catching up on those. So I hope you guys have a great, when am I going to post this? It's Friday. I guess I'll just go ahead and post it. So I hope you have a great weekend. And if you don't watch it until Monday, I hope you have a great week. And okay, see you soon.